Telephone number 480-5151.
Welcome back to Good Morning Antigua Barbuda. I'm Shalana George, and here with me I have Natalya Lawrence and Dr. Jenny Daltry. They're here to talk about an offshore island project, which I'm very interested in because it has to do with snakes. And I have a big fear of snakes. So, ladies, can you just tell me how this program started and what is the program really all about?
Well, we started when we tried to, somebody called Cavell Lindsay, he heard that we did have snakes on Great Bird Island, so he went out with two other persons, and they searched all day, and they never found anything. And when they just about gave up and were ready to go back to Antigua, there was a snake right beside them in the tree. So from that, they decided we have to conserve the snake and, we have to share this with the world. So that's pretty much where the work started. And it started as the Antigua Racer Conservation Project, but it has grown to the Offshore Islands Conservation Project.
Oh, great, because I have been to Bird Island, I've never seen any snakes, but I've been told that the birds eat them.
No, the birds don't eat them.
Okay, I'm just checking, but I've never seen any. But would it really matter if the snakes go extinct?
Well, to me it would, and I believe to a lot of other persons as well. In our national anthem, it starts off, Fair Antigua and Barbuda. Antigua and Barbuda is a very beautiful country, and part of the beauty of our country is the biodiversity. Now we have a snake that is unique. We can only find it in Antigua and Barbuda. So I think we have the responsibility to take care of it so that future generations of Antiguans and Barbudans can enjoy it. And as well, we want other persons in the world to come and enjoy this richness that we do have.
So how is the Antiguan racer different from other snakes?
Well, there's a lot of other snakes in the Caribbean, of course, and scientists have shown, though, that the racer, which has actually only ever been found on Antigua and Barbuda, is completely unique. And what I think is really special about it is that it's so harmless. It's gentle, they do not bite, they're not venomous, they do not hurt you. And they're just really lovely, lovely little snakes. If you're going to have a nice snake, that's the one.
Wow, snakes that don't bite. Are they really small, big,
They can grow up to about 3 feet long. What's kind of interesting is that the males and the females are a different colour. So you can actually look at them and you can see which ones are males and which ones are females. And the females tend to be a lot bigger than the males.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've been told also that rats are involved where the snakes happen to disappear. So are the rats a big problem where the snakes are concerned?
Well, rats eat everything, so...
That's true.
Right.
That is so true.
Wherever we find rats, we find that, for example, with the islands that the snakes are found on, if they're rats, the rats eat the little snakes and the eggs. They also eat the food that the snakes need, the lizards, right? And apart from that, they eat the birds' eggs and so on. So wherever there's rats, wherever we find rats, we find that the fauna and the flora suffers.
So how do the rats get to these offshore islands?
It's very easy. A lot of the islands are close to Antigua and Barbuda. We have a lot of rats on the mainland. So some of the rats, they can swim. Also, if we have storms, there's a lot of debris in the water, so the rats can
go on the debris.
Okay, and the main thing is when we go on our little picnics and so on to the offshore islands, we don't check our boats for rats. So the rats get a ride with us, and they hop off and they make the offshore islands their home. So
you make it seem like if the rats are catching a bus, like if they turn up at the bus stop saying, I'm going to town or something. That's how you make it. So how do you decide which islands to get rid, to clear the rats?
Well, ideally it would be nice to clear all of them of rats, of course, but which islands were done was developed through a whole lot of consultations with the government authorities, with the landowners, with local communities, and we were looking for islands that were as big as possible in order to benefit the racers and other wildlife, but also islands that weren't going to be developed, because it's very hard to control rats if you're going to have construction work taking place, jetties being built, more traffic.
That's true.
So in the end, I think we restored a total of 12 islands off Antigua.
Wow. So what's the process? How do you clear these islands of the rats?
It's a very difficult process, as anyone who's got rats in their house knows.
I'm sure, because we usually use cheese and strychnine and things like that. I hope nobody will arrest me for anything like that. But I mean, you have to do what you have to do, because they eat in your clothes, they eat in your shoes, they take in your food.
And what usually happens is you clear them and they'll come back.
That's true.
6 months later they'll be back. So what we had to do is clear every single one off the island. So there's not one female, one baby, nothing left. And that meant putting a special rat poison that only affects the rats about every 30 or 40 feet across the islands. And we needed huge teams of volunteers to make trails across the islands, to go up and down the cliffs, to put poison all over the islands. So it worked.
So you get lots of volunteers to deal with these rats.
No one likes rats. I think people hate rats even more than they hate snakes. So
well, really and truly, I just think they're disgusting. But for me to really, go and, like you said, to go and personally get rid of them, I won't do that. I am so sorry. Apart from benefiting the racer population, does removing the rats benefit anything else?
Well, as I said earlier, we see a marked improvement in the fauna and the flora. Before, when there were rats on certain islands, there were little to no bird pairs on these islands. Now that we've gotten rid of the rats, we jump, like in a certain species of birds, we see from 2 bird pairs to 450, right? We've recorded birds that, every year we do a bird census, and this last year we've seen birds that we had not seen before. And we had so many birds that some of the areas that we go to check for the rats, we couldn't go because we didn't want to disturb the nesting birds. So also the vegetation flourishes because the rats eat the seeds. In the drought, they eat the roots of the plants, they eat the young seedlings. So when there are no rats, the vegetation flourishes. We even see more snails on the islands. I mean, we know we don't really want to hear about snails right now, but
that's true. And it's good. They're all a part of the environment. And I also want to know, now that we, Antigua and Barbuda, now that we know about this project, how can we help? How can we keep the rats off of the offshore island?
Well, I do hope everyone cooperates to help keep rats off, because it's not just the wildlife, it's also a health issue. The rats spread disease, and tourists don't want to see them. Nobody wants to see rats. So we do ask everyone, if you're going out there at Easter weekend camping, if you're going on a trip on a boat, try and make sure your bags and your boat is clear of rats. And if you do see rats, especially on Great Bed Island or Green Island, please report it to the EAG, because we've got this big effort going on to keep rats off those islands. And as Natalya's got here, is we have a number of bait stations which you'll see on the islands, which contain poison, to try and stop rats being able to get re-established on those islands.
All right, well, Natalya, you can open the box and give us another display. And I hope it's not a snake in
there.
No, okay, because I will be jumping off of the set.
On the islands, we set this up on a base, right? So we don't leave it for every little ant and bug to get into. And at the side, it has a hole so that the rats can get in. Okay. Inside,
that's the hole right there?
Right.
Okay.
And inside, we have, it's like a little maze.
That's a nice compartment.
Right, so the rats have something, a little something to play in. And this is called a bait stick. Okay? We put blocks of bait on it, and then we put it down in here. So after they go through their little maze, they find a little treat for them. Okay? And this is where the rats take a little treat, and then sadly they die.
Oh my.
Right. So what we do, we constantly check. We have a routine, and we check the bait boxes often, and we check to see if there are any rats or anything. Actually, it is working, because, as I said, the population of birds and snakes, when we started the program, we found 50 snakes. Today, after our last census, we have over 500. So the program is working, and so far the islands have been kept clear of rats. Right.
Well, that is really, really good. I also have one more question. This is about the snakes. Where the snakes are concerned, are they only on the offshore islands, or are they on Antigua and Barbuda?
Well, they are at present. They're on 4 offshore islands.
Yes.
But historically, they used to live all over mainland Antigua and all over Barbuda as well. Okay. But today, they're just on the offshore islands, and you'd be very lucky to see them. They're still quite hard to see, and like I said, they're completely harmless, very gentle and very sweet. And we see a lot of tourists now coming over wanting to see them, because internationally they're attracting a lot of attention. Well, just this week they've been in the news in Australia, in India, in Britain.
Well, that's great to know, but I hope if I happen to come across an Antiguan racer, that I don't have to run as fast as Speedy Gonzalez.
It wasn't from you.
Because I am terrified of
they're very timid.
tarantulas. Maybe I've been watching too much Animal Planet.
No, our snakes are very timid. So
okay, all right. Remember, Antigua and Barbuda, if you have any boats, if you see any rats on the offshore islands or on the boats, you contact the EAG. Let them know that you have a problem. Any last words you'd like to say?
Well, I'd like to say perhaps a big thank you to, like I said, a lot of people have taken part in this project over the years, a lot of local volunteers, local fishermen, particularly the people of Seaton's village, the members of the EAG, and a huge thank you to them for everyone who's taken part in this big, successful project.
And thank you for coming on Antigua and Barbuda, letting us know about the Offshore Island Project, preserving our wildlife. Once again, this is Natalya Lawrence and Jenny Daltry. Let us be a bit more aware of what's going on in our country and, of course, the offshore islands. My name is Shalana George, and we'll be right back here on Good Morning Antigua Barbuda.